All right, everybody, welcome to Celebrity Court. Guess what? Tonight, we're going to enter a courtroom unlike any other. This celebrity edition of the Court of Public Opinion is a courtroom where, yeah, you're right, it's no real judge. There's no real jury, but millions of voices arguing from barbershops to boardrooms, Twitter threads to text chains. This is the Celebrity Court of Public Opinion. And tonight in this session, we're diving headfirst into 5 headline-making legal sagas that challenge how we see justice when it's served to the rich and famous, as well as the infamous. From alleged abuse behind closed doors to a convicted rapper continuing a plea of innocence, from legacy icons under investigation to viral lies threatening reputation. This episode is not for the faint of heart. But the real question here tonight, which we're going to dissect, is what happens when fame and law collides? What protects the existence of the innocent? And how far can a rumor travel before it becomes a verdict? Wow. Welcome to Celebrity Court of Public Opinion, where the stakes are real, even if the courtrooms are on YouTube. Let's begin by meeting our legal beagles that are joining us tonight. First up, we have that fiery civil attorney, Shatan Turner. Counselor, welcome back to Celebrity Court.
Hey, Your Honor. Glad to be back.
The break is over, Shatan. Join us, Shatan. Huh?
I said I'm ready.
All right. Joining Shatan is the author, Shit That Never Taught You in Law School, the survival guide to navigating the law, Attorney Jason Weiss. Welcome back to Celebrity Court.
Thank you, Your Honor. Excited to be here. And the new book launches in 9 days.
All right. And what's the name of the book?
More Shit They Never Taught You in Law School.
All right. Now, Jason, how can they find out? How can they support you in 9 days? And do they go on Amazon? Where do they go?
You can pre-order it right now on Amazon for the Kindle. Otherwise, on May 29th, 2025. It'll be listed on Amazon, and you could find it under More Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. And that's my mom and dad's anniversary, and that's why I'm doing the delayed release date.
Oh, excellent. All right, and bringing up the rear, he's last but not least, humorist in law, Sean Carter. Welcome back to Celebrity Court.
How you doing, Your Honor?
I'm good. Why are you looking so serious today?
I'm just feeling bad for Chris Brown, but we'll get to him.
All right, everybody. Court is now in session. Let's get started. All right. First up, this case is interesting to me. Our first case is one that continues to polarize the culture. Despite being sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting Megan Thee Stallion, rapper Tory Lanez still maintains his innocence. And so does his legal team. This is really interesting to me. With questions around DNA evidence and claims of a biased trial, this case has become a battle not just of facts, but of fandom and faith in the justice system. So this is my question, and I'm going to go to you, Attorney Carter. On what legal grounds can a criminal conviction, right, because he's been convicted for the crime,
absolutely,
by a jury, on what legal grounds can a criminal conviction be appealed in California?
All right. It can be appealed on the grounds that, one, you got new evidence. Okay. Now, in this case, it's kind of interesting because what the Lane's attorneys are saying is that this bodyguard heard, what was her name, Kelsey Harris, actually say that she was the one who shot him. Now, he was supposed to testify at trial and somehow just disappeared. And they were looking for him too. All right, they put a bench warrant out for him, etc. And then after the trial, he just comes rolling back like, "Hey, what did I miss? Like, you missed your boy going to jail." And it's bizarre because it would be interesting if he were Megan Thee Stallion's bodyguard. You can understand why he would do that. But it's Tory Lanez. He also walked away from a job. All right, because you can't bodyguard Tory right from prison, right? So
Megan's money's longer than Tory's money.
Now that might be the case. So here's what they got to prove: one, that this evidence was useful. It's kind of interesting because it's falls in the hearsay, which is that he didn't say he saw it. He said that Kelsey said it to him, or he overheard her say it. So it's kind of third-hand information. He have to prove that it's credible and that there was some reason he was kept away from the trial. That was either the state paid him or they were harassing him. Right? They came into his house and said, "We're going to arrest you unless you run away." They're going to prove that there was something that Megan had paid him to go away. They got to prove that there's some reason that he didn't testify other than the fact that he just decided he didn't want to be there.
Okay, let me go to you, Shaitan, really quickly. This is my question because I don't understand why this case just won't go away. I don't understand. And what is even more interesting is how the public opinion is impacting this whole process. Like people are actually, through public opinion, are really throwing up a lot of dust about an appeal process for him. Like people, like they're still at it in the court. So tell me, can public opinion impact the appeal process?
It's not supposed to, because justice is supposed to be blind and deaf, but sometimes, you know, it does play a role. There's that old phrase, like justice delayed is justice denied. And in this case, people are saying there wasn't justice at all. This is a story that is fraught with like messiness, and it doesn't really sound quite right? Because people are always suspicious when people have multiple sexual partners, because not everybody lives as an exciting life as those people in LA, right? And so in this story, you have 3 people in the car,
all having sex with each other.
All having sex with each
on
other.
Different occasions, though.
Different occasions. And then there's friendship. And then so there's a curiosity factor. And people can believe that emotions were flying, but people can't really believe that he intentionally shot Megan because he liked Megan. They had a relationship. They
just had sex 2 weeks earlier.
Right. And he was cheating on Kelsey with Megan. And so the notion that all of a sudden he's going to shoot Megan, who's the one he was dipping out on the regular girl with, just doesn't really kind of drive with people. And I think that's part of the thing that's fueling his lawyer believing that if only, you know, he can find a legal theory to attach to get an appeal, that he has compelling enough facts that a judge would want to exercise their discretion in his favor.
Okay, Attorney Weiss, let's go to you last real quick. So tell me this. If you were Tory Lanez attorney, what would you be doing to change the judge's decision to allow him to appeal? So what would you be saying?
First, I would be looking out for his safety, right? He was stabbed, 14 times, and he has a collapsed lung. And a fellow inmate, Santino Cassio, a fellow inmate who's currently serving a life sentence for murder, is the one that did it. And, you know, I understand it might be movie related and a movie buff, but, you know, when someone with life in prison is already there, goes ahead and commits a crime like that, that means that someone put them up to it. So just saying.
Right.
I'll leave my conspiracy theories at the door.
What are you telling the judge? What are you telling the judge to convince that judge to change his decision of no appeal?
New evidence. And that new evidence is that this bodyguard is all of a sudden available, all of a sudden coming out and speaking and telling the story that someone else told him that they did it. I don't think it will change the judge's mind, but it's worth the shot. I would also say that my client is in danger in prison. And, you know, you got to give this man a shot. I don't know how severe the collapsed lungs, plural, is, and I don't know how he's going to come out of this, but I would also pull on those heartstrings of the judge. He might not make it.
Attorney Carter, can a celebrity's post-conviction media strategy influence their legal standing?
Yeah, I mean, the media is driving a lot of this stuff. It drove a lot of this conviction. Think about it. There are 2 plausible stories here. And by the way, I want to misspoke, and thanks, Sasha, asked for correcting me here. The person who's coming forward now was not Lanez's bodyguard. That's Harris's bodyguard. By the way, how does she have a bodyguard? Thank you. Right? That's why it confused me. I'm like, well, how does Megan Thee Stallion's assistant have a bodyguard? Who trying to get at the assistant?
Was she in the truck? The question is, was she in the truck?
Yeah, and so she's.
Was the bodyguard in the truck?
We don't know. He says that he's going to testify that he overheard her say that she did it, so that maybe he wasn't there. He doesn't say he was there. He saw it. He says that he overheard her say it, and that is an admission against interest. You can admit that, but the thing that's kind of interesting to me is that I would would probably try the idea, and I'm not sure it's going to be successful either, that it's hard to believe that this jury found beyond a reasonable doubt that Tory Lanez had intentionally committed assault here with a dangerous weapon, because there's a lot of things that make you think, one, maybe, all right, Kelsey Harris had done it. She's just as likely to have done it. They're in the same car together. He's not as mad as Megan as she was mad as Megan, because remember, right? Megan's sleeping with her future baby daddy. All right, and that should be a problem. And it just seems to me it's kind of interesting that the jury decided that they just believed Megan's account. And remember, Megan's account comes 1 month after the incident happens.
Right.
And so there's some suspicion, obviously. Well, why would you wait a month? I don't know, about maybe just me. But if you shoot me, you got about 25 minutes to get a head start. Right? I'm going to give you 25 minutes, and then I'm calling the police. And I'm calling your mama, too. I'm calling the school board. I'm calling everybody who will listen that you shot me. It ain't going to take me a whole lunar calendar. All right, I wish you wait until Mercury gets in retrograde. Like, I don't get why you don't say that. And so there's a good contention that says, well, maybe she was confused or whatever. She says, hey, he started talking stuff about me. So, and then that's the whole point, right? Is to think about it. If this had become a big public story, it might not be, there's probably enough reasonable doubt for the police to have been.
I don't get that either. There were too many moving parts that didn't add up for there to be a unanimous situation. Let's go to some of the comments. So Abby NYC, SL, and a couple of Sasha S says that yes, that bodyguard, he was there. Okay. He was there. Sasha S said he's seen what happened. Now, I don't know if this is true, but that's what you guys are saying. JP Mills says he was there. Okay. Now let's talk about really quickly, all attorneys in on this. Why was it so important for Kelsey to get immunity? Immunity from what?
Because she's the one who shot her.
Because what? Yeah.
Well, I said she's the one who shot her. Like, when people are offered immunity, it's generally because they could be potentially implicated.
That's what I was thinking.
Had drugs on her, or if she had some reason to fear prosecution, but immunity was a condition of her participating in the case. I don't know. I'm with
That's
Sean
fishy
Carter.
To me. It's just fishy to me.
Who had the motive, right? If my girl is, I'm not going to say this because I could be in the situation. But hypothetically speaking, a woman might be really angry if her girl was sleeping with her man, and if there was a gun handy, she might fire it.
Well, I'm not going to be mad at that idea right there. JP Mills says she most likely shot Megan. I think there's a lot of money involved here. There is a #1 talent involved here, with a very powerful record label involved here, and this had to be pinned on someone to protect the dollar. So I guess we'll figure it out. All right. Thank you, lawyers, for giving us the update. Figuring it out. Next up, a private battle made heartbreakingly public. Yep. Our beloved actress and singer Halle Bailey has been granted temporary custody of her son. She's citing emotional abuse and controlling behavior from her partner, that little rapper dude, DDG. What began as a fairy tale romance has now turned into a courtroom confrontation that now involves the welfare of their child, which is what I don't like. Okay, attorney, I'm going back to you. So I know that this is family court. I know you haven't practiced family court in a long time, but what constitutes emotional abuse in family court, and how is it proven without physical evidence?
Well, I've never actually practiced family law, so and I didn't even take it in law school, so maybe that's in Jason's book. But I have my own experience with family court, and I had to study it for the bar exam. So in this case, I mean, I think it'd be worthwhile to talk about emotional abuse, but in this case, she's alleging physical abuse.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do we have pictures, bailiff? So this is the chipped tooth that she said she got from, and this is the bruises. Now let's go to the chipped tooth. Now, is the chipped tooth from him hitting her, or did he push her down and she fell and hit her tooth?
Supposedly slammed her face into the steering wheel of the car.
Yeah, and they were.
That's going to do a lot more than that little chip tooth.
If you slammed the face into the steering wheel of a car, Why didn't it bust any of her lips?
And why didn't it bust any of the other teeth? That's not from having that's from, chewing on I don't know, something that broke your tooth, or no, sorry.
Well, I don't want to say that
lawyers. We're not forensic physicians. Like, we can't tell you why the absence of the evidence.
I go to a dentist twice a year. I'm good.
Oh God, Christine Arson is Jason White. I make a mean PB peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Would you like one? Ooh.
Of course.
All right, so what do you guys? Okay, so tell me about the emotional about the bruises. Can we see the bruises in the chipped tooth again?
See, I'm not going to fight the bruises, right? Those look
right.
But the chipped tooth.
Yeah. She also said that at one point he broke into her house when she wasn't there, took some pictures, showed her of her bed, saying, "I'm in your house now."
I can see that happening. I can see that happening. That's a boyfriend.
That's going to lead to the emotional distress.
Okay.
And they were wrestling, and I mean, it was a volatile relationship, right? And so there's several things about this case that bother me. One, she's a 25-year-old phenom, right? She was the first Black Little Mermaid and caused an international stir about it because everybody was like, Little Mermaid's supposed to be white. And she carried the movie and did a great job because she's an incredible talent. And so the fact that she has to deal with this nonsense when she has so many positive things going for her, especially being such a beautiful girl. And actually, once my brother danced with her at a club, like, call him, Halle, once this is all like taken care of, because he's a nice guy. But so we have a lot of examples of these beautiful, talented girls getting caught up in these like ghetto ass situations that people associate with a different class. And I think it just goes to show that domestic violence, unfortunately, is quite universal. The other interesting thing I thought about this case, and I thought you might ask, is how she ended up with sole custody, physical custody.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to ask this question. I do want to know, how does verbal threats and controlling behavior enough to lose parental rights, even if it's temporary?
Well, you got to remember that the standard for deciding custody is what's in the best interest of the child. And so look at that baby. That baby's so cute. It's always so sad to me because everybody who's ever been a family has these happy pictures where, you know, the baby seems content and they seem to be devoted parents. And then something happens and they can't stand each other. But everybody who's ever broken up, who's had children together, whether it's a divorce or a unmarried relationship, has animosity at the end, right? And not everybody loses custody of their kid. So in this case, the judge was persuaded that it was in the baby's best interest, 18-month, the toddler, in the baby's best interest to be with her all of the time, right? And so that's the part that does make you wonder about the evidence presented that persuaded them not to take other options, or he didn't want it. But
and it's only temporary. It's only till June 6th.
But still, it could have been shared during this time. Like, it's not like this is an infant who's breastfeeding that has, like, the mom has an automatic, like, let me get through this time period.
Right.
So the evidence persuaded the judge that in this temporary period, that the sole physical custody was in the baby's best interest to be with her. And so I think that when June 6th comes around and they actually have a full hearing, it'll be really interesting to see what comes out.
So let me ask this question. Again, this is where I try to understand these very young, ultra successful, talented young women like her. You are at Disney, right? I think that she needs to take her relationship and her issues that she's having with her husband out of this public stage, because she is really damaging her brand with A, associating with him, and B, going through all of this turmoil. Am I wrong in viewing it that way?
I mean, I don't agree. it's hard. Like Britney Spears kind of changed the game for everybody ever affiliated with Disney, because everything that could have been done, Britney kind of did. Britney got, into some volatile relationships. Britney was accused of using drugs, had to shave her head, right? She was a Disney star, and she made all the mistakes that people said before then Disney stars were pure as the driven snow and they couldn't make mistakes. And now, Miley Cyrus has come out of that. She didn't have the Britney problems, but she was kind of wild. So I think the question is whether her talent will compensate for this distraction. So right now, right, she is a victim. She made the mistake of falling in love with somebody who apparently wasn't worth a whole lot, but the narrative is that she's a victim. If it changes and there's some other stuff that comes out that puts her in a bad light, then I think she might have something to worry about. But I also think one of the things I was going to say about how she got the sole custody, even if it was just temporary, is remember, she and her sister used to sing gospel. So she's got Jesus on her side. I think there's like a whole church that is fast
Wrote a letter.
praying. Yes, on behalf of little
Wrote a
Haley.
letter on behalf of her.
We got this.
I don't know. I think for me, just being concerned and thinking from a corporate side, you got pregnant without being married. That's not a big deal, but it's still against family values. Then you got a divorce in a very short time, and now you're in a physically abusive relationship fighting for custody of your child. I think she kind of needs to realign, because I want to see her do bigger and better things on and on and on. All right. Speaking of bad decisions and big stars, from Disney darling to courtroom drama. Yep, we have another Disney star. Actress Skai Jackson has filed for a restraining order against the father of her child. And she too is alleging harassment, threats, and an increasingly hostile co-parenting situation. Her legal moves raise question about protection, parental rights, and what happens when young fame meets real world trauma. I'm going to go back to you, Attorney Turner. What is the process and standard? That's what I want to know in this particular case, because she claims that he tried to make her drink bleach. All right. So what is the process and the standard? And maybe Attorney Carter can help you out for securing a restraining order in a domestic dispute.
Every state has a process for obtaining protection from abuse orders, right? They call them different things depending on where it is. But there was, I think it was the Bush administration, maybe, where they came up with these model federal statutes that states adopted in order to protect, at the time, women who were victims of domestic violence. And the process is easier than it is in other types of restraining orders, because it was proven that it was just harder for intimate relationships to get the kind of evidence that was necessary to get restraining orders. And so I used to represent people who were victims of domestic violence in these matters. I actually stopped doing it. Ironically, I stopped doing it because I live in a neighborhood that's in transition, and I seem to be running into the alleged offenders a lot, like at the grocery store. Yeah. And the way they do it in Pennsylvania is you don't go in a courtroom and argue it kind of in a dispassionate way. The lawyer who represents the victim has to go sit next to the offender in Pennsylvania and persuade them to settle. And so it's a very close kind of intimate conversation. And once I started running into them, I was like, no, I'm good. My company still handles them. And my colleagues who do it, I think, live in different types of neighborhoods that they are not running into the people all the time. But yeah, okay. I felt vulnerable. The last time I did it, I was pregnant, and I was like, you know what? I will do my pro bono work another way.
So what will it take for you to leave my client alone? And by the way, how was the steak that you bought yesterday?
Exactly.
Attorney Carter, question, Your Honor.
Attorney Carter, hold that thought 1 second. I think the bailiff, show us these text messages that DG is trying to use as evidence. Can we see the social media posts, bailiff?
And don't forget, there is a Disney curse, and we could talk about that too, with all these actors and actresses that were kids that, you know,
kind of spiraled out of control.
Do we have it?
Debbie Ryan, and then the girl that was on the show with Zendaya, you know, and there's a who is it? Shia LaBeouf. He was on.
Doesn't look like we're going to get this. We're not going to get this. But let me.
That's why I'm entertaining, Your Honor.
I want to know. The reason why I want to know is he has a whole bunch of social media posts that he wants to use as evidence.
Right.
Is that admissible as evidence in a restraining order?
Yeah, everything's admissible. But really, the issue, and so the standard of proof is this, and because I think this is a real question and important for the algorithms to understand, is that it's not like a criminal trial where you need proof beyond a reasonable doubt. All right. All you need to do is to present enough evidence so that there's a reasonable basis to believe that this happened to you. So, for instance, you come in there with the bruises and pictures like that, it's enough to get a temporary restraining order. Now, to get a permanent restraining order, you have to have a preponderance of evidence, 51%. But just to get the initial temporary restraining order, it's very little proof at all, which is good because the point of this is to try to get people out of harm's way and to give people a chance to kind of calm down and be reasonable and get away from each other for a little while, for cooler heads to prevail. So the burden of proof is really low. Just, you know, basically the only reason you couldn't get a restraining order is if you could say, hey, I wasn't in town that day. Right.
Right. Attorney Carter's point, they make it easier for the initial stage. So you can go to court and have an ex parte motion in front of the judge and get the temporary order, right? So the defendant's not even there, right? You just go, they accept what you have to say at face value. You have to have a relationship with the person that indicates that you had a domestic relationship with them or you were dating. You don't have to live together. And so then you can get the temporary order. The process.
Now, I've also seen, I don't mean to cut you off, Attorney Turner, but I've also seen if you hired the right law firm, that lawyer could pick up the phone and call the judge that issues these restraining orders and say, listen, this is what we got. I need a temporary restraining order in 24 hours.
But that's what Attorney Turner just said, right? You're allowed, that's called an ex parte communication with the court. And you're allowed to do those in very limited circumstances, maybe more in domestic violence and all of that. But if there is fear that violence is going to happen, harm is going to be done, a crime is going to be committed, you can ex parte get through to the judge.
That's what you mean.
That's exactly it. And the other
she's a huge star. And if you dare get a call that she's being beat on or being abused, I mean, you're going to execute it, right?
Correct.
Well, you don't even have to be a big star. Like in truth, and this is why these proceedings now, because some people have gotten savvy at them, anybody can do that process. All you have to do is show up to the right court and tell the judge you had this kind of relationship, you're afraid, and you were a victim, and it gets granted the temporary. They don't do any investigation. Like the only reason you wouldn't get it is Attorney Carter said is like somehow it was impossible, right?
Right.
You didn't have the right relationship with them, so it's not covered under the statute. So instead of it being someone that you were dating, it was somebody on the street, right? You can't get it off of a stranger.
Got it.
From abuse orders are designed for domestic violence situations. And so it's a really, as Attorney Weiss said, narrow set of circumstances that's designed to protect victims of domestic violence. When I was talking about sitting next to the defendant to convince them to agree, that was to get the permanent injunction, which lasts for a year. And so they already had a temporary one. And in Pennsylvania, they like to get, a settlement. And so you sit next to them, you're like, look, she doesn't want you to mess with her anymore. You shouldn't mess with her. There's an election going on today with the Court of Common Pleas here, so I won't say too much about the process, but there were several aspects of how it's done here that I thought were odd, considering where I came from in North Carolina. You'd go in a courtroom and you'd argue it, and it felt like litigation. This feels like asking somebody to watch your cat.
Here in Florida, it's similar to that as well. And I mean, look, all it needs to do, and Attorney Carter said this, it just needs to be plausible or possible. You don't need to prove it. You just need to be able to prove that it could have happened the way you said it.
So
All right,
let me ask a big quick question. What is this? What does that say?
This is toward what a DDG. Is this a DDG tweet or instant
This is like a text message. I'm not
DM?
sure what this is.
A DM?
I
Or not
love-
DM, a message.
keep you in the loop.
Chat.
I
Oh,
love
it's
you
about
wanted
the
to keep
kid.
you
This
in the
has something to
loop.
do about the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let me tell you about this. By the way, this case with Skai Jackson is really, really interesting because we talked about the restraining order. We didn't mention the fact that the restraining order is put out so against her Yerky man, all right, Yerky squared, all right, that he not only can't come near her, he can't come near the baby or the dog. Now, when the dog gets his own paperwork, all right, what kind of I tell you what, Yerky, you got BDE, and I mean a big dummy energy. You can't go near the dog. All right, you know you ain't shit.
You know you ain't shit if they granted that, or could she throw that in and they just grant it automatically?
Yeah, there was some reason to believe that he might hurt the dog.
I think that was an LA thing. I've never seen animals get.
Well, chances are it's her dog. That would be my guess. And they don't want him stealing it, kicking it, taking it, doing whatever. And Your Honor, one of the things that you said was, you asked about how social media plays into this. When I was teaching on the law school level, the first thing I would tell all of my students was, whatever you put that out there in social media, it's ripe for the picking. So you can use it. So if you're applying for a job and you post something that you're drinking at age 20 and it's 21, they're going to use that against you. If you're putting in there that you're out and you're doing used against you, anything you put out there in social media, you put it out or someone else puts it out, it can be used against you in court, in life, in profession, and in everything. So
it doesn't matter. All
just
right.
be careful.
All right, algoriters. The likes aren't liking. Be sure to hit that like button. And the subscribe button. If you already are subscribed, be sure to hit the share button. And don't forget to jump down in the comments because we love you in the comments. Yes, Attorney Turner.
I was going to say one interesting thing about this, in addition to the dog being included, is also the child, because there's a form that's completed for these protection for abuse orders, and often visitation with the child or children is carved out. And so they agree that there has to be monitored exchanges, or you have to do it in public places. And so the fact that he also can't see this child again suggests that the evidence was such that the judge felt like he was a risk and it wasn't in the best interest of the child, which won't bear well for him in custody, because there was an option for him to still be able to see the child and not see her.
Well, all right. These crazy stories are crazy. And why two of our best talented young black women making the biggest checks over at Disney? Come on, ladies. Let's get it together. And come on, dudes. Stop messing with them. All right. Next up, at age 84 years old, Smokey Robinson, who is a Motown legend with a squeaky clean image, well, until now, is now under investigation. The singer is reportedly under active criminal investigation in Las Vegas, though no charges, I have to say, have been filed yet. The silence surrounding the allegations have only amplified the speculation, and his legacy, if it gets some traction, may be hanging in the balance. All right, let's go to you, Attorney Weiss. Tell me what is going on with Smokey Robinson. And I can't believe at 84, he's still sexually harassing his house help.
All right. Well, here's the deal. He's 85, and according to the complaints and everything, he stopped harassing them in 2024 when he was 84. So I guess now that he's 85,
he's grown up.
Mellowed out. So, and he's currently under investigation by the LA County Sheriff's Department, not Las Vegas, even though this supposedly occurred in Las Vegas. So there was a the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is following is checking out allegations that he sexual assault and misconduct made by 4 former employees. And they're all women employees that were housekeepers and a personal assistant. And supposedly he repeatedly assaulted her in a sexual manner, and in some cases AR'd them during their employment. And these supposedly occurred at various different properties all throughout the United States, in Bell Canyon and Las Vegas from 2007 through 2024. Now, he's also accused of creating a hostile work environment because these ladies work there, and that he didn't pay the proper wages. He didn't do anything. And his wife of 25 plus years is a co-defendant because she knew about it. She created this situation as well. She didn't stop it. And some of the details from the lawsuit, I can't say here on a show, but the Jane Does claim they were forced to have various types of physical relationship with him, vaginal, oral, and digital, and were subject to repeated assaults. So now what they're doing is they are suing for $50 million. And one accuser said that during her employment from January of 23 to February of 24, she was assaulted at least 7 times. So this is an 83 to 84-year-old man.
January 23. I have interviewed this man on the red carpets before. You could run from him.
January 23 to February 24, she claimed she was assaulted 7 times. And
Assaulted how?
In those ways.
I'm sorry?
In all
of those ways.
Yeah.
So, and I think what happened was the police investigated this and saw this complaint and thought it was so bad that they decided that they were going to take action. Now, of course, Robinson's attorneys say this is all false. This is vile. It's fabricated. It's all this. It's emotional gain. There's greed involved, and they're just trying to hurt him.
You said one of the cases is as recent as 2023.
2023 to 2024. Yes.
Case Wiz. Okay.
Yep.
They said that he would all the women meet the same profile. They're all Latinos. And so there was an element of like coercion as it relates to like immigration status and those sorts of things. So you have people who were disempowered.
Got it.
They didn't have a voice. The other thing was, allegedly, according to the press release, he was texting them. And he understood where the cameras were in his house. So he would ask them to meet him in places where there were no cameras. And that's where all this hanky-panky was occurring. And the reason that they didn't talk is because they were afraid of the immigration status, but they were also embarrassed to tell their families that they were enduring this because, as Attorney Rice alluded to, it was like all kinds of freaky stuff that wasn't necessarily... It wasn't just that it was infidelity. It was that it was kinky too.
Oh, he went to a Diddy party and got hooked. That's what it is. And he saw the ladies cleaning with Murphy's oil, and he said, "I got oil too. Let's go."
I got to get some of that too.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a criminal investigation, though. Why
it's a slippery slope?
Why haven't any charges? Why haven't any charges been filed? If it's
go ahead. They're investigating. They haven't found enough yet to do that. They're under this. It's the Special Victims Unit is looking into this in LA.
And what if they are undocumented citizens?
It depends on what.
A couple of them are for sure.
I mean, but what happens? What happens if they are?
Well, remember,
Trump will ship them out and pardon Smokey Robinson, and that's it.
Yeah, well, assuming that happens. But outside of that, you understand that even undocumented people have a right to access the courts. They're persons, so they can sue you if you hurt somebody who's undocumented. That's not a get out of jail free card. All right, they have access to the courts, etc. Now, in this case, at first when I heard about it, I got to tell you, I was a little skeptical because it's one thing, all right, to say you got graped by an 85-year-old man, all right, but twice, 3 times, 4 times. How does an 85-year-old man get you 6 or 7 times? Like
the sad part is like it's within a month period.
Right, but then
what is he eating? What is he taking?
But wait.
No, it's over years.
There's different extremes, right?
Absolutely.
The R word is one extreme. If he goes ahead and touches her shoulder the wrong way, pinches her in the butt, that's still considered assault of a sexual nature.
No, that's actually not considered criminal. That would be a civil wrong.
She said oral. She said oral. She said vaginal.
And digital from 2007 to 2024. So maybe
I didn't even know an 85-year-old man knew how to do digital sex.
That's how you start. It's just your fingers. Isn't that how everybody starts?
Digital. I thought digital was
you thought of sexting. No. But here's the thing. Let's break this down, because from a criminal standpoint, all right, it's criminal to force yourself upon someone to do. Now, if you coerce them and simply sort of say, hey, you know what, maybe your job will, is on the line, etc., that's probably not going to fall within the criminal statute. Now, it will fall within the civil case, and that's the $50 million. And that's when I started believing that there's some credibility to the story, because he, like you said, he had a pattern. It was all mostly undocumented Latinas. All right. He, by the way, also, according to them, wasn't even paying them minimum wage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what kind of nonsense is this?
And Sean, they might also get him on like failure to pay taxes, because it seems to me that that's that Jason was talking about. Once you decide you're not going to pay people right and you're going to sexually harass them, like, why are you going to be bothered with paying their taxes?
Oh, yeah, you're going to do payroll taxes. No, you're going to do payroll taxes on that.
He probably doesn't think he's going to be around that much longer. He'll let the estate settle it out. He'll just go ahead.
Seriously, I don't get this. So you got $150 million.
Is this what they're always talking about at the nursing homes? Because they say the nursing homes be getting rowdy.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about it is,
Eminem talked about it. He'd be the only one jerking with the jerkin right?
I live in Arizona, and I don't, the 80-year-olds stay with the 80-year-olds. That's the other thing, by the way. I don't know why he's trying to get all in. Remember, if you got a woman with a slip. But anyway, we're not even going to get into that right now.
I live in Delray Beach. Come on.
I want to go
and some of those compression socks.
I want to go back, though, to the practical aspect of the question that Al asked related to undocumented immigrants and crime. So I agree with Attorney Carter, because it's true that you can't just commit crimes against any person who's in the United States. Correct. That said, Attorney Weiss said something that I think we were laughing too loud and we didn't give it enough time, which is what actually happens to them if they show up to assert their rights, right? And under this administration, they could get deported. And that's also part of the reason why people who are undocumented are more likely to be victims of crimes, and they don't get paid the right wages because they're afraid to come forward, because even if they're right, they still might end up going back to the country that they fled. And so that's a real concern now. And so, like I told you guys in Chambers, when I met Smokey, I found him quite charming. He gave me a polite kiss on the cheek, and we took a lovely picture. He's got relatives in Pittsburgh, and I know somebody who bottles his wine. I don't know what he was doing with his fingers. Maybe I liked it, but the thing is that some of these people might decide not to show up at the courthouse, because we've already seen this administration send a judge to jail, right? So it's a different environment.
Let me ask you this. How much is $50 million in pesos?
Oh,
a whole lot of years.
I tell you what, if I go back to Mexico, I will go to Mexico if you give me $3,500. All right now. But if you gave me $50 million, I'm gonna go to Mexico and
you'll walk back to Mexico.
Right. And that's why I don't understand. I don't understand why this just wasn't settled out of court and all of that, and why it's making look. Smokey Robinson's people didn't do a good job of taking control of this. I'm not right or wrong. Right. You don't want this in the press.
I don't know, but $50 million? That's a third of his worth. You know how many songs he had to write to make? And by the way, Smokey's got 4,400 songs in his catalog. Everything that ever was written in Motown, he wrote.
He
All right. You think he want to give up every Michael Jackson, every the royalties to every Stevie Wonder? And here's the thing about it: you can imagine as a rich guy, and a lot of these allegations, some of them are like physical, all on horrible stuff. Whoa. Some of it is the kind of stuff that I see rich guys doing. Sometimes the servants will come in there and he's getting out of the shower, and he's like, "Well, hey, why don't you go ahead and give Smokey, a little tug."
The whole thing is like at 85, you still are trying to get tugged.
Guess so.
I'm 57, and I might start tugging something right now. Yeah, 87. You going to get tugged?
Hands up, Attorney Carter. Hands up.
Order in the court. Order in the court. Order in the court. Court. My God, we're going the wrong direction. All right, last case of the evening. Chris Brown is once again back in legal headlines. This time, it's serious, but guess what? It's also international. On May 15th, just a couple of days ago, 2025, he was arrested in Manchester and charged with grievous bodily harm with intent following a violent incident at Tape nightclub in London's Mayfair district. Now, prosecutors allege Brown attacked a music producer, Abraham, with a bottle of Don Julio 1942, followed by a brutal assault involving kicks and punches. Now, surveillance footage reportedly captured the incident, raising questions about celebrity accountability abroad, as well as video evidence, as well as international justice. Now, I'm going to throw this to you, Attorney Carter. What is grievous bodily harm with intent under UK law, and how does it compare to felony assault in the US?
Yeah, I took a look at this because he's looking at the maximum you can get, by the way, is life. All right, but they're not going to do it in this case, but they're looking at the most likely maximum is like 16 years.
Yep.
You know how much ass you can whoop in America for 16 years? You can whoop 3 or 4 people, all right, and not get 16 years, okay? And so the Brits don't play that. Yep. Also, the Brits are a little more serious about this. They don't have guns, all right? So the hands is pretty much, the big weapon you have, and they're serious about this. And here's Brown's problem. Brown did this in 2023.
Right.
They've been looking for him since then. And for some reason, he decided he's just going to show up in Manchester. I guess they had a soccer game. I don't know what the heck is his problem. He's going to show up.
Yeah.
Right? Like they ain't looking for him. They come to the hotel and get him. And then he says, "Hey, well, let me out. I got a tour." They're like, "Oh, no. All right, you ain't going nowhere because remember, we've been looking for you for 2 years now. So you're a flight risk. And we know that because you flew last time." And so he's got this this Breezy Bowl 20 tour. It's going to be Breezy Bowl 28 or at most, all right? Because you're not doing this anytime soon. He's got if anything is, so he filed his original bail request, just like Diddy did, and they said no. You know what? You're a flight risk. So he's actually gotten they set the next hearing for June 13th, but his lawyers were able to go into court and say, "Look, we've got a new bail request," and just like with Diddy, what they'll do then is say, "Okay, there's certain things we're going to give you to make sure that you don't think he's a flight risk. All right, we're going to make sure that we take his passport, that we take his jet, right? That we put up a bunch of money in your account so that if he leaves it behind, he's got to walk away with most of his fortune and all of that." The problem that Chris Brown has, though, is I don't even know why he's trying to get out because he wants to do this tour. The tour is supposed to start on June 13th in Amsterdam. He's supposed to be in jail at least until then. And even if he does, they're not going to let him out to go on tour. So he's got problems.
Wow. Talk to me really quickly, Dan. This is what I want to know because we talked about when you go to different countries and how all the extradition and the travel consequences. What are the extradition and travel consequences for American citizens charged with violent crimes? What are the rules surrounding that?
They're gonna ship him back here.
And does he go?
I mean, the places that it's not like he's somewhere where there's no extradition. Like that wasn't smart. You want to go somewhere, you go somewhere where you can't be examined. And plus, everybody knows who he is.
Well, but remember, extradition would be if he had committed a crime here. He committed the crime there, so he's going to serve time in their jails. Right. And like I said, they're saying it's serious. And the worst part is, from what we hear, they got him dead to rights. They got surveillance video. Yeah, right? It's not going to be, The only thing you could possibly argue, I guess, is that they don't understand the context. I'm sure there's no sound to it. But you hitting somebody over the head and time again with a bottle is going to be very difficult to say that, well, you know what? He was threatening me. He was on the ground. I was scared. And so...
Did he? Why can't I? That's going to be his defense. Did he?
And he's got a history.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a long history of
He
that.
never should have gone back. I mean, the biggest thing for him is who advised him to go back? That's the question. He could be over here right now with different flavored, different scented baby oil. He could have on, boxing gloves and beating up some people for fun. He could be doing whatever it is. He get more tattoos, right? But now he's facing significant jail time just because he decided to take a plane to a place where he knew he shouldn't have been.
But you said it, Attorney Turner. He decided to take the plane. How many times in our lives, Carter, Turner, and Weiss, do we tell a client, don't do this, don't do that, please don't do this, avoid that, and they do it anyway? I'd say 75% of the time. So
all the time.
He probably
they're
not going to get me.
All right, Dominic Brooks says this seems like a setup. Someone set him up. Nah.
Well, no, here's the thing.
I can set up to go to Manchester. Manchester was where you had a fight.
Yeah, exactly. But here's where I'm gonna give Brown a little grace. The Brits could have called the U.S. Marshals and picked him up a long time ago. We got extradition both ways. You commit a crime there, so they hadn't been looking at it, and so he's thinking, hey, they're not really worried about me. I'm Chris Brown, right?
Wow.
They like my dance, right? And because they could have got him a long time ago. And the fact, but here's the thing is, it's one thing, I'm not gonna come get you, but if you come to me. By the way, the only reason they know he came is because he must have told them he was coming, right? I'm sure there's a bunch of press, and now you got him looking stupid, right? In the press because you were supposed to.
And I'm sure if the guy who got beat up is over there sour because he didn't get justice,
absolutely right.
If he saw any type of tweet or picture or any type of story on his Instagram, you're gonna call the police.
Look,
all right, hold on. This is the part of the
point, though. Attorney Carter brings up a good point, though. Granted, we're talking about world nations, but really Attorney Carter broke it down into street rules, right? Like, you live cross town and you stole my bike a long time ago. Like, I might not go cross town looking for you, but if you bring yourself to my house, then it's on, right?
It's on. Yeah, I like that.
Especially if you're riding your bike in front of my house.
Absolutely right.
And you
really try to push it in.
Wait, even better. You tell me you're going to be riding my bike in front of my house at 5 o'clock. I'm going to be there with my baseball bat, and I'm going to have the cops there. Same thing when they put out a bench warrant, right? Most of the time, they're not out there actively looking for the person, but you get pulled over for a speeding ticket. You go to TSA, you get on a flight, ding, 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 you're going to jail. So he got either bad advice or he thought he was above it. And if he thought he was above it, then he can rock.
I think Monica Avila said it best. These celebrities are not untouchable, but they think they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think they are. I think they really do believe that their fame trumps, in many cases, the law. All right, everybody, this is a part of the show that we go back over our cases and decide who's guilty and not guilty in the court of public opinion. First up, Tory Lanez case. Is Megan Thee Stallion guilty or not guilty of giving this man hell after his conviction? Or is Kelsey guilty or not? Who's guilty and who's not guilty in this case right here? Let's go to you, Attorney Weiss. Who's guilty and who's not guilty?
I'm guilty. I don't really care. I think he's just going to sit there and rot, and I'd be more curious to see how he survives in prison and if he makes it.
All right, Attorney Carter.
Both of the women are guilty for doing that little short, ugly man. All right? You can do better and taller. Do better, you sisters. Do better.
Attorney Turner, who's guilty, who's not?
I think that Megan is guilty for not managing the public relations of this, because on what planet do you get shot on your side? Yeah. They trying to figure out what's wrong with you.
All right, I'm Ellen. I'm the judge here in the Celebrity Court of Public Opinion. And I'm going to find all three guilty, 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 and guilty. All three of them are guilty because something in the milk ain't clean. Kelsey, something ain't right with you. Tory, something ain't right with you. And Megan, it's not all peaches and creams over there. It's not innocent girl. It's not. I'm sorry. I'm going to find all three guilty. Guilty. All right, next up. Is DDG guilty or not guilty of physically assaulting Miss Bailey? Attorney Turner?
Oh, yeah. I think he's guilty because she didn't give up all that happiness for no reason. He did something.
All right, Attorney Weiss?
I agree. Something's not right there. And they just had to protect the safety of that little baby.
All right, Attorney Carter?
I think common sense is guilty. All right. I don't want to victim blame nobody, but let me tell you something. What part of DDG sounded like a trustworthy father figure for your children? All right. By the way, I call him DDG. All right. Diddy plus gonorrhea. All right. That's DDG. All right. Forget the DDG. DDG is like a bad Bitcoin, like a ghetto Bitcoin, right? Like what kind of name, what kind of brother like this? You know damn well he ain't gonna act right. He ain't gonna act right. Stop trying to get a brother. Come on, look at you. You're beautiful. You're talented. And you're going to find some brother who's selling his music on SoundCloud. Stop it. All right. Get you a real man or a legal humorist. Somebody.
You can't turn a hood into a husband. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Okay, so wait
not a DDG.
You said DDG is guilty then, right?
Yes,
guilty of everything.
Okay, Weiss, you said guilty. You said you didn't. Okay, Carl Turner, you said guilty. DDG is guilty.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to say DDG is guilty. We're going to find DDG guilty here in Celebrity Court of Public Opinion. I am just devastated by how much physical abuse in these relationships are happening. We've got to stop this. Like, I mean, it's like every couple, like everybody is going through it. And I'm like, what are they manufactured relationships? Are they rushing into relationships because they're celebrities and they got to be with somebody hot? Are they not thinking about what relationships really are? And then they're procreating with them. Now you got a whole big mess. You got physical abuse. You got mental abuse. You got child just thinking about trying to figure out a broken home abuse. You know what? This ain't right. DDG, get it together. All right, next up. Is Skai Jackson's boyfriend guilty or not guilty of stressing that girl out? Attorney Carter?
He guilty more than that. He also guilty of being ugly. But yeah, I'm thinking about it. When the court tries to protect the dog from you, all right, that's all the guilt I need to know. Once again, though, I don't want to victim blame, but come on, Skai, you another one. You find you gorgeous. And you out there picking men like they're the last box of bag of hot Cheetos at the gas station. All right. You got the bag. He all expired, open, and dusty. All right. And that's exactly what it is. Dusty, right? Just dust all in your pants because you done found you could do better. Think about it. I could do better. I'm a man than that. That's ridiculous. All right? How could you not be able to pick better? Look, let's put the picture back up again. And ladies, tell us which one of you ladies like, I got to have me some of that. That don't make no sense.
He looked better in the other pictures.
I ain't never seen a picture where I thought he looked better. All right, Attorney Weiss, is he guilty or not guilty?
Attorney Carter said everything's spot on, so I am guilty of plagiarism, and that man is guilty.
All right, Attorney Turner.
So really quickly, I have to stand up for my women, right?
Okay.
In these situations, here's what I suspect is.
Well, that's a moral thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There either. But here's what I think happens. You know, as a successful woman, although wasn't a child starlet, what happens is you get into these relationships, right? They're not going well. You're with men who aren't as successful as you. Then you start feeling guilty about the fact that it's not working out. And you're like, maybe I should be more understanding. Just because they're not doing as well as I am, you know, doesn't mean that they're not good people. When in truth, they're trash. And so we don't recognize it soon enough because we keep trying to redeem it because we feel guilty about our own success. And then we end up in these regrettable situations. Like, he looks like a meth head there. I don't know what the money is about. Like, It's just a whole.
Yeah, and somebody said, by the way, he changed over time. Men change. She got him out of jail. They met by, and I'm not kidding, corresponding in jail. He got out because she sent him to Venmo to send bail money to get out. All right, ladies, when the man texts you for bail money, it's time to move on. All right, you should move on.
All right.
Keep in mind, those are only 20s.
All right, hold on, team. We're running out of time here. All right, I'm Alan. I'm the judge
But
here.
no, guilty. He's
And
guilty.
we're going to find him guilty as charged. Next up is Smokey Robinson, guilty or not guilty of being a nasty old man, but a legend. Attorney Carter?
He's guilty of not getting white housekeepers. All right, that's that. I'm telling you, I got me some when I had a little money. I got a white housekeeper, and let me tell you what's good about it. All right, it's gonna cost you a lot. You can't get it at Home Depot. All right, it's gonna cost you a few $100,000 a year. But here's the thing about it is, you get you a nice little au pair. You get you a nice little au pair from Norway or something. It's gonna cost you a few $100,000. But guess what? It come with the French benefits because you don't pay that kind of money. All right, so you trying to get a discount, so you can't go in there trying to sneaky leak it. All right, you pay for it up front.
Attorney Weiss, is he guilty or not guilty?
I think I'm guilty of egging him on to continue to do these. That was wonderful. Smokey Robinson, I don't want to believe it. That's what I'm going to say. But unfortunately, I think too many people, too many allegations, too many things. So something's not right there. All
right, Attorney Turner.
Celebrity Court of Public Opinion is not guilty of racism or stereotyping. As it relates to Mr. Robinson, I'm going to reserve judgment because I really did
love how he kissed your cheek. All right, I'm Alan. I'm the judge here in Celebrity Court, and we're going to find Smokey Robinson guilty of having live-in undocumented sex workers, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought that was a part of the job description. Maybe the wife was supposed to make it clear. I don't know. This is bad. Whatever it is bad.
Maybe it was written in Spanish and he didn't read Spanish. I don't know.
I just don't understand how it could be so frequent. He needs, but what are you going to do? You're going to send an 85-year-old man to jail to do what? Like,
to hang with Diddy.
I don't know.
He's gonna
he's guilty, whatever it is. Last up, Chris Brown. Is Chris Brown guilty of being guilty or not guilty? I think he's guilty of being stupid. That's what Chris Brown is guilty. He's guilty of being stupid and thinking that he's bigger than the law. I refuse to believe that somebody so wealthy, so advised with a team did not think before going back to Manchester, hanging out and having fun, did not think that there's a possibility that I could go to jail.
He's guilty of thinking he's bigger than the law.
I think he's guilty of thinking he's bigger than the law.
And a bad hairdo. And he's also guilty of, and I shouldn't say this, but not believing his luck was going to run out. I mean, if he gets caught up on this, quite frankly, it's a result of stupidity, but we know probably of 10 other things that have interfered with his liberty. So lesson to the algoriters is if you've done some shady, illegal stuff, stay clean and above board because eventually it's going to catch up with you.
Or run. Don't go back to the scene of the crime.
Don't go back to the scene of the crime. That you want to be back. All right, everybody. Tonight we walk through the tangled legal lives of 5 celebrities. Some convicted, some accused, some just one rumor away from ruin. But what we've learned is this: fame may grant access, but it doesn't grant immunity. We've seen that public opinion can sometimes drown out due process. That's true. We also seen that social media can act as both the witness and the weapon. You guys better know it. And that justice, whether you believe in the system or not, is rarely simple when you're living in the spotlight. It's rarely simple when you're living in the spotlight. Now, listen, as viewers, we owe it to ourselves not just to watch, but to understand. Behind every headline is a human being. Behind every claim, though, can be a complex legal truth. Stay curious, stay questioning, and until next time, let the record reflect, in the court of public opinion, you're always on the jury here. All right, everybody, have a good night, and thank you for joining us. Court is now adjourned.